The signs are not going to stop. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not next week. They will keep appearing, keep repeating, keep interrupting your ordinary days until you finally see their name. This is not superstition. This is not your imagination working overtime because you are lonely or tired or hoping for something to happen. This is a message being sent to you from somewhere beyond logic, beyond coincidence, beyond anything you could explain to another person without them thinking you have lost your mind. But you have not lost your mind. You have found something. Something is being revealed to you in pieces, in whispers, in patterns too consistent to be random, too specific to be chance. And today, right now, in this exact moment, heaven is about to show you why the signs will not let go of you until that name finally appears in front of your eyes. Undeniable, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. You already know what I am talking about. The number that keeps showing up on the clock at the exact second you glance at it. The song that plays out of nowhere carrying a memory you thought you had buried. The dream that felt too real to dismiss as just a dream. The sudden thought of them arriving in the middle of an ordinary task, uninvited, unexplainable, undeniable. Maybe it is the receipt with a number that means something only you understand. Maybe it is a stranger who shares their name standing in front of you in a line you did not plan to be in. Maybe it is a memory triggered by a smell, a color, a street corner you had not thought about in months. You have tried to reason your way out of it. You have told yourself it means nothing. You have distracted yourself with work, with people, with noise, and still, somehow, the same presence returns. That is not weakness. That is not obsession. That is a signal. And signals do not repeat themselves for no reason. Heaven does not waste patterns. When something appears once, it may be coincidence. When it appears twice, it may be attention. But when it appears again and again and again, refusing to fade no matter how far you run from it, that is not chance anymore. That is a message being delivered with divine persistence because you have not yet fully received it. And here is the part that will either comfort you or unsettle you, depending on how ready you are to hear it. The signs are not going to grow weaker the longer you ignore them. They are going to grow stronger. They will get louder, closer, harder to explain away, until ignoring them becomes impossible. This is not because heaven is impatient with you. It is because heaven knows that some truths cannot be whispered forever. Eventually, they have to be spoken plainly. And that plain speaking is exactly what you are being prepared for right now. If any part of what I just said is already resonating somewhere deep inside you, comment the word 777 right now as your declaration that you are ready to receive this word. Like this message before you continue. Subscribe so that heaven's next word does not pass you by, because what I am about to reveal next is the part most people are never told. The part that explains why the signs will not stop until the name is finally, fully revealed. There is an old story that carries the exact shape of what you are living through right now. A young boy named Samuel was sleeping in the temple when he heard his own name called in the middle of the night. He got up, assuming someone had summoned him, and ran to the one he thought had spoken. But no one had called him. He returned to sleep, and the voice came again. "Samuel! Samuel!" Again he rose. Again he was told no one had spoken his name. This happened a third time before he finally understood that the voice was not coming from the room around him. It was coming from heaven itself, and it would not stop calling his name until he recognized who was speaking. The repetition was not confusion. The repetition was preparation. Heaven does not usually reveal itself in a single moment. It builds recognition slowly, patiently, through repetition, until what once felt strange becomes unmistakable. This pattern shows up again and again throughout every sacred story ever told. Jacob fell asleep with a stone for a pillow and saw a ladder stretching between heaven and earth. A vision so vivid that when he woke, he declared the ground itself was holy. And yet that single vision was only the beginning of years of confirmation that followed him through every season after. A man named Gideon, uncertain of what he was being called to do, asked for a sign. And when the sign appeared, he did not trust it, and asked for it again in reverse. And heaven, patiently, without frustration, gave it to him a second time exactly as he needed it. Heaven is not offended by your need for confirmation. Heaven expects it, and heaven answers it, again and again, for as long as it takes for the truth to finally settle in your spirit the way it settled in theirs. This is exactly what is happening to you. The signs are not random interruptions. They are a name being called again and again until you finally understand who is speaking and what is being revealed through them. A name carries weight that most people underestimate. In nearly every sacred tradition, a name is never just a label. It is an identity, a destiny, a declaration of who someone is and who they are becoming. When a name will not leave your mind, when it surfaces in your thoughts before you are fully awake and lingers there after you have closed your eyes at night, it is not simply because you miss a person or long for their presence. It is because that name has been written somewhere you cannot yet see, and heaven is working to bring what is written in the unseen into something visible in your reality. The signs you have been noticing are not there to torment you with uncertainty. They exist to build a bridge between what heaven already knows and what you are only beginning to understand. Every sign is a plank on that bridge, and the bridge does not stop being built until it reaches the other side, until the name you have been sensing becomes the name you finally, clearly see. There is a thinker whose reflections on longing feel strangely relevant here. A man who spent much of his life writing about faith, desire, and the ache of wanting something we cannot fully name. He described a particular kind of longing, one that arrives suddenly and unbidden, a joy tinged with sorrow that seems to point towards something beyond itself. He believed this longing was never meant to be dismissed as mere sentiment. He believed it was a signpost, evidence that we were made for something more than what we can immediately touch or explain, something that echoes from a world we have not fully entered yet. What you are experiencing carries that same quality. It is not simply romantic hope. It is a longing that feels older than logic, deeper than infatuation, as though your spirit recognized something before your mind could catch up to it. He also observed that we often misread this longing, chasing the wrong object, mistaking the messenger for the message, mistaking the ache itself for the thing the ache is actually pointing toward. That kind of longing is rarely random. It usually exists because it is pointing you towards something real, something being prepared, something that has not yet fully arrived, but is undeniably on its way. Now here is what most people never understand about this particular season. The season where the signs feel loud, then suddenly feel silent, then return louder than before. The silence is not the story ending. The silence is the story deepening. When the signs seem to pause, it is not because heaven stopped speaking. It is because you needed a moment to learn how to trust without needing proof every single day. Faith that only survives on constant confirmation is fragile faith. Heaven does not want you dependent on signs the way someone becomes dependent on reassurance from another person. Heaven wants you rooted, steady, able to stand even in the quiet, because the quiet is where character is built, and character is exactly what you will need to carry what is coming. Consider how this pattern has always worked. A man named Abraham was given a promise, and then waited decades before seeing even the beginning of its fulfillment. And in the waiting, he was not abandoned. He was formed, tested, matured into someone capable of carrying what had been promised. A man named Joseph was given a vision as a teenager and then walked through betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment for years before that vision came to pass. And every single one of those silent years was doing something in him that the vision alone could never have done. So when the signs slow down, do not assume you have been forgotten. You have simply moved into a different phase of the same process. The name has not disappeared. It has only gone underground for a while, the way a seed disappears beneath the soil before anyone sees what it becomes, doing its quiet work in the dark long before anything visible breaks the surface. But not every persistent thought is a divine sign, and discernment matters here more than excitement does. There are ways to test whether what you are experiencing is truly from heaven, or whether it is simply the product of longing, memory, or emotional attachment dressed up as destiny. The first test is the test of peace. When something is truly ordained, it carries a strange, steady calm even in the middle of uncertainty. Your mind may still ask questions, but your spirit does not panic. If the thought of this name brings you anxiety, desperation, or a constant need to control the outcome, pause and examine where that feeling is truly coming from. The second test is the test of fruit. Does this connection, even in your imagination, produce patience, humility, growth, and a desire to become better, or does it produce obsession, comparison, and restlessness? What is truly from heaven tends to grow good things in you even before it fully arrives. The third test is the test of direction. Does the thought of this name draw you closer to becoming who you are meant to be, or does it pull you away from your purpose, your responsibilities, your peace? A true sign sharpens your focus rather than scattering it. It makes you want to grow, to heal, to prepare, rather than making you want to escape your own life while you wait. And the fourth test is the test of timing. What is truly ordained does not need to be forced, chased, or manipulated into existence. It unfolds according to a rhythm you cannot rush no matter how badly you want to. If you find yourself constantly trying to force a sign into meaning something it does not, constantly bending coincidence into confirmation just to feel better, it may be worth asking whether desire has quietly replaced discernment. True signs do not require that kind of effort. They simply arrive, undeniable, and leave you more settled rather than more desperate. There is one more sign most people completely miss, and it is often the most important one of all. It is not the number on the clock. It is not the song on the radio. It is the sudden, unexplainable peace that settles over you the moment you stop fighting the whole process and simply surrender to it. Most people spend so much energy analyzing every sign, dissecting every coincidence, that they miss the quieter miracle happening underneath all of it, the miracle of a heart slowly learning to trust again. If you have noticed that you are less anxious about this than you used to be, if you have noticed that the waiting feels less like torment and more like anticipation, that shift inside you is itself a sign, perhaps the clearest one you have received so far. It means the preparation is working. It means you are becoming someone capable of receiving what is coming, rather than someone who would sabotage it out of fear the moment it finally arrived. And here is something worth sitting with for a moment. The name you are waiting to see clearly may not always be a stranger you have never met. Sometimes it is someone already standing quietly at the edge of your life. Someone you have overlooked because they did not arrive with fireworks. Someone whose steadiness you mistook for ordinariness. Heaven does not always announce a name through someone new walking through the door. Sometimes heaven simply opens your eyes to see, for the first time clearly, someone who has been faithfully present all along. This is worth considering honestly, without forcing it, without assuming it applies if it does not, but also without dismissing it out of habit simply because it feels less dramatic than a new arrival. Sometimes the most sacred names are the ones hiding in plain sight, waiting patiently for your eyes to finally adjust to the light. There is another story worth remembering here, the story of a woman named Ruth who left everything familiar behind to walk into an uncertain future, trusting a process she could not fully see the end of. She did not know the name of what was coming. She only knew she had to keep walking faithfully through the unfamiliar field she found herself in. And it was in that very field, doing ordinary work with no expectation of anything extraordinary happening, that the name she would spend the rest of her life bound to finally appeared. Boaz did not arrive with trumpets. He arrived in the middle of her faithfulness, in the middle of her doing what needed to be done regardless of whether a promise ever came true. This is worth remembering whenever the waiting feels unbearable. The name often appears not when you are searching hardest for it, but when you are simply, faithfully living your life exactly where you have been placed. If you have made it this far, that is not an accident either. Something in you needed to hear these words today, specifically today, and heaven knew exactly when you would be watching. Comment the name that has been resting on your heart, even if you are only willing to type the first letter. Heaven is not asking for perfect boldness. Heaven is asking for honesty. And if honesty feels difficult, comment the word ready instead. Because sometimes readiness is the only declaration a tired heart can manage, and that is more than enough. Like this message right now, if any part of it has felt like it was written specifically for you, because it was. There is a reason this particular name refuses to leave you, and understanding the reason changes everything about how you wait for it to fully appear. For some of you, this connection points toward covenant, a relationship built not on convenience or infatuation but on shared purpose, mutual healing, and a partnership that strengthens both of you rather than depleting either one. This kind of bond requires preparation on both sides, which is part of why it has not fully arrived yet. Heaven builds the container before it pours in the content, and a container built too quickly cannot hold what it is meant to carry. For others, this connection points toward collaboration, a shared assignment where your gifts and their gifts combine to accomplish something neither of you could build alone. These kinds of connections often begin quietly, disguised as ordinary curiosity, before their true purpose is revealed, sometimes years later, when you look back and finally understand why your paths were drawn together in the first place. For some of you, this name is part of a deeper transformation happening inside you, a mirror heaven is using to reveal wounds you have not yet healed, patterns you have not yet broken, or potential you have not yet claimed. Whether they ever fully enter your life or not, has already done something significant simply by causing you to look inward this deeply. And for others, this connection is seasonal, meant to teach a specific lesson about trust, patience, or self-worth before either of you move into what comes next. Not every sign points to permanence, but every sign points to purpose. Nothing heaven repeats this persistently is meaningless, even if its final shape looks different than what you originally imagined. Some of you are being prepared for a name that will stay in your life for decades. Some of you are being prepared for a name that will only stay long enough to change you forever. Both are sacred. Both matter. Both are worth every ounce of patience this season is asking of you. Think for a moment about what it would actually mean to receive this without the fear that so often accompanies waiting. Imagine no longer needing a sign every single day because you have finally settled into trusting the process itself. Imagine looking back on this exact season, the one you are living through right now, and recognizing it not as the hardest chapter of your story, but as the chapter where you finally grew into the person capable of holding what was coming. That is what this waiting is quietly building inside you, whether you can feel it happening or not. Every night you have laid awake wondering. Every day you have talked yourself out of hope and then back into it again. Every moment you have chosen to keep believing when it would have been easier to give up, all of it has been shaping you into someone stronger than the person who first noticed these signs. You are not the same person who started noticing the number on the clock. You are not the same person who first heard that name whisper through your thoughts. You have grown, quietly, invisibly, the way roots grow before anyone ever sees a single leaf above the soil. While you wait for the name to become undeniable, waiting is not something you are meant to do passively. There are things you can do, right now, today, that prepare you for the moment the signs finally converge into clarity. The first thing is to strengthen your inner life, your prayer, your reflection, your stillness, because the clearer your inner world becomes, the easier it is to recognize truth when it finally arrives in front of you. A cluttered spirit misses signs that a quiet spirit would catch instantly. The second thing is to address the wounds you have been avoiding. Unhealed pain distorts discernment, causing you to either dismiss real signs out of fear or chase false ones out of desperation. You cannot receive clearly with a heart that is still bleeding from something you never let heal. The third thing is to keep building your life fully, your goals, your growth, your purpose, rather than pausing everything to wait. A name that is truly meant for you will not require you to abandon who you are becoming. It will complement it, walk alongside it, add to it rather than subtract from it. The fourth thing is surrender, releasing your grip on timing, on outcome, on control, because clenched hands cannot receive what open hands are ready for. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is trusting that the one orchestrating this knows the timing better than you do. And the fifth thing is balance, refusing to turn this name into an idol, refusing to let every day revolve around searching for the next confirmation, because heaven does not want your peace held hostage by constant waiting. Live fully, prepare quietly, trust steadily. That is how you carry a promise without being crushed by the weight of anticipation. Something is shifting right now, even as you listen to this. The signs are not slowing down anymore. They are accelerating, converging, aligning in ways that feel too precise to dismiss. You have noticed it, haven't you? The frequency has changed. What used to appear once a week now appears daily. What used to feel like a whisper now feels like a shout you cannot ignore even if you tried. Even people around you have started noticing that something is different about you lately. A certain stillness, a certain expectancy. You cannot quite explain to them without sounding strange. This intensification is not random either. It is what happens right before clarity breaks through, the way pressure builds right before a storm finally releases, the way silence deepens right before an announcement is made, the way the sky darkens most completely right before the first light of morning breaks through it. The signs are not going to keep circling forever. They are closing in on a single point, a single moment, a single name finally becoming visible in a way that leaves no room for doubt, no room for second guessing, no room for wondering if you imagine the entire thing. Think about every story you have ever heard where a promise finally arrived. It almost never arrived gradually, fading in slowly like a sunrise no one particularly noticed. It arrived suddenly after a long stretch of waiting in a single unmistakable moment that instantly made sense of everything that came before it. One conversation, one glance, one unexpected message, one ordinary afternoon that turned out to be anything but ordinary. That is how this is going to unfold for you as well. You will not need someone to convince you it is happening. You will simply know, the way you know your own name, the way you know the sound of your own heartbeat, the way certain truths announce themselves so clearly that doubt no longer has anywhere left to hide. And when that moment comes, every sign you are noticing right now, every number, every song, every unexplainable thought, will suddenly line up into a single, coherent story that could only have been written by something far bigger than coincidence. Do not let the intensity of this season convince you that something is going wrong. Intensity is not danger. Intensity is proximity. The closer you get to something significant, the more your entire being seems to sense it. The way the air itself feels different before a long-awaited arrival. Let that intensity remind you rather than frighten you. Let it be confirmation rather than confusion. You are not losing control of your life by paying attention to this. You are simply awake to something most people walk past without ever noticing. You are closer to that moment than you have ever been. The waiting is almost finished. The name that has been forming in whispers is preparing to arrive in full clarity. And when it does, you will understand why every sign before this one was necessary, why every quiet season was part of the process, why the timing had to unfold exactly this way and not one moment sooner. You will look back at every number, every song, every unexplainable thought, and you will finally see the full picture instead of only fragments of it. What felt scattered will suddenly feel intentional. What felt confusing will suddenly feel obvious. What felt like coincidence will finally be revealed as design. If these words have reached the place in you that has been quietly hoping, quietly wondering, quietly holding on through nights you did not tell anyone about, declare it now. Say within yourself, I receive this word. I trust the timing. I am ready for the name to become clear. And if you sense that heaven is confirming something in your spirit right now, comment 777 one more time as your declaration of faith, your statement that you are standing in expectation rather than doubt. Like this message. Share it with someone who needs to hear that the signs they have been noticing are not meaningless. Subscribe so that when the next word comes, and it will come soon, you are here to receive it the moment it arrives. Before this closes, let this be a prayer over you and over everything you have been carrying in silence. Father, we come to you with hearts that are tired of guessing and spirits that are ready to finally see clearly. You are the God who calls names in the night, who speaks in patterns too consistent to be ignored, who prepares hearts long before revealing promises. Today we ask you to quiet the noise of fear and doubt inside us. May our discernment sharpen so we can tell the difference between what is truly from you and what is merely our own longing dressed up as destiny. May our patience deepen so that waiting does not become bitterness but becomes trust. May our hearts remain soft even in the silence, receptive even in the delay, steady even when the signs seem to pause. Father, if there is a name you have been preparing to reveal, we ask that you protect it, shape it, and bring it forward at exactly the right time, not one day early and not one day late. Heal whatever needs healing in us before that moment arrives, so that when clarity finally comes, we are ready to receive it with maturity rather than desperation. Remove any fear that would cause us to sabotage what you are building. Remove any impatience that would cause us to force what only you can align. Let the signs that have been appearing continue exactly as long as they need to, and let them stop only once their purpose has been fully accomplished, once the name has been fully seen, once the promise has been fully revealed. Surround this season with your peace. Let every quiet night and every unexplained thought be covered by your presence rather than left to anxious wondering. Let every sign we have already received be enough to keep us steady even before the next one arrives. May our eyes be open to recognize what has been faithfully present all along, and may our hearts remain patient toward whatever is still being formed in the unseen. May we release the fear of missing the moment, trusting instead that you are far more invested in this outcome than we could ever be. May we stop measuring your faithfulness by how quickly answers arrive and start measuring it by how consistently you have carried us through every season that came before this one. And when the name we have been sensing finally becomes undeniable, let that moment testify to your faithfulness, to your perfect timing, and to the truth that nothing you begin is ever left unfinished. Let it become a story we tell for the rest of our lives, a story that reminds us and everyone who hears it that patience is never wasted, and that what is truly meant for us cannot be delayed forever. Let it become proof, not only for us, but for everyone watching who is walking through their own season of unexplained signs, that heaven does not forget, heaven does not lose track, and heaven does not call a name into someone's spirit only to abandon the promise halfway through. Until that day, keep us anchored, keep us hopeful, and keep us paying attention, because the signs are not finished yet, and neither is this story. In the name of everything holy, we trust this process completely, and we release our need to control what only heaven can complete. The signs will not stop. They were never going to stop early, and they will not stop late either. They will continue exactly as long as they need to, appearing in the quiet moments, in the songs, in the numbers, in the thoughts you cannot explain away, in the strangers who share a name you cannot forget, until the name you have been sensing all along steps fully into the light where you can finally, clearly, undeniably see it. That moment is closer than it has ever been. Stay ready. Stay watching. Comment 7771 final time if you believe this word was written for you tonight, and let this be the video that marked the beginning of the season you finally understand. Because what has been whispered is about to be spoken clearly, and you are meant to be here when it finally is.